Radio Middays.
Welcome to Cairo News Radio Middays. Jack Stine and Spike O'Neill, Mr. Trump Derangement Syndrome himself. Isn't that right, Spike?
I've been trying to mitigate my infliction.
Yeah. You know what? I had a realization, Spike, about
Yes, sir.
this, because we're going to be talking Trump. This is the front page. This is the front page nationwide. So this is what we're going to be talking about for the next 15 or so. I had this realization. I was driving in my car this morning, and I was going to Whole Foods to get some beverages before the show, because, you know, I like to have a little bit of Grandpa's old cough medicine before I get behind the microphone.
Attaboy.
So I'm going to get some coconut waters, and I turn on my the radio in my car, and I hear I'll mention the guy's name. I hear Rob Carson. He's the guy who took over for Rush Limbaugh when Rush passed away.
Right.
So, do you know who Rob Carson is? You ever hear Rob's
I'm
show?
familiar with it. I've never really heard the show. I know of his work.
He's a really talented guy, and I don't want to knock him because he's a really good broadcaster. He and I have totally different politics, but in terms of being just a broadcaster, he's a really talented guy. So I'm listening to him talk about Trump and the indictment, and I realized something about Trump derangement syndrome in general, which is that almost everybody who tries to talk about Donald Trump, it doesn't matter if you're a huge fan of the guy or you hate the ground that he walks on, almost everybody has Trump derangement syndrome at this point in time. It's not just something that affects people who are against President or former President Donald Trump. It also applies to people who are fixated on Donald Trump, and I think that this case brings that out in them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like, I really do think that people are having a reaction to Trump getting indicted, which is magnified in a way that people had when he got elected, right? Only now it's from people on the right who are I've read people saying that this is the beginning of a civil war, that this is, we've crossed the Rubicon and we're never coming back, and that the communists are finally taking over, and that Trump is going to go to jail.
The communists? When did they get involved? I thought this was our libtard moment. Don't let the communists in to steal my fun.
I've heard nothing but communists, socialists, DA. I've heard all this stuff about it, and I realized something, that people in general have a hard time just talking about former President Donald Trump in an analytic way,
Okay.
in the way that we might analyze someone like Eisenhower or Lincoln, or JFK. People are so emotionally attached to Trump, both positive and negative, that it's impossible just to look at the instances in his indictment, I think, for most people, and just look at the facts and just come up with a conclusion that is open-ended. People need it to be people need it to be closed. That Trump is either a victim or he's a lifelong criminal. You know what I mean? It's the extremes on both sides all the way around. And I think that we need to get away from that. I think that it's very toxic to approach a political figure in this way. We don't do it with almost anybody else. And why we do it with one man, I find it to be unhealthy, and I find it to be disturbing.
I can tell you why we do it, at least from my perspective, why we do it. Let's go back to the figures you mentioned from history. You mentioned Eisenhower, right? I couldn't tell you anything about Eisenhower's personal life or his persona. Well, okay, yeah. There are some things that you get from the coffee table book. I hear you. But I could tell you what policies he championed. I could tell you what Lyndon Johnson's policy aspects were. I could tell you what his strengths were.
Okay.
In the way that he dealt with the legislative better than any president in our history. He was born of and grew up in the legislative branch of government. Now when you get to guys like Kennedy, you can start to paint how you feel about him with regard to his personal flaws, characteristics, life.
Right.
Kennedy gets into the realm of that, and then we're talking about Trump. What with Kennedy and with Eisenhower and with Johnson, who also liked a big seat in his pants. He liked a lot of room in his pants. We know a lot about that about Johnson.
Yeah.
With all those guys, we can tell you about all their policy points, what they felt was important for the nation as he led the country forward, whichever president it was, Lincoln especially. But with Trump, short of the $1.7 trillion tax relief, I really couldn't tell you. I could tell you that Trump's a nationalist, Trump's a populist, Trump's an America First politician. I could tell you all those things. But
likes tariffs. Yeah.
Well, when all you've got's a hammer, everything's a nail. When it comes to we can talk about tariffs for another whole segment. But with Trump, he's a personality first guy.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to say. You know, Trump's policies are so far in the rearview mirror of who Trump is as a brilliant speaker, and I'm not talking about what some people have called a fifth grade vocabulary. I'm talking about his ability to work a crowd like nobody's business. I mean, the man is a brilliant media manipulator.
Really charismatic.
Extremely charismatic. The people that like him, that have met this guy and have stayed on his good side, will speak of him in glowing terms till the day they die.
Yeah.
He's got it. He's got that. And so he has built this persona, and he's built this opinion of him that he is fighting for the little man, and he is fighting for the average American, and anybody who fights against Trump is fighting against them. That's why people are so dug in to support him till whatever happens, to whatever end.
Yeah, I mean, look at someone like, I know we have this audio cut from Lindsey Graham. What I find to be so interesting about this, so this is when Lindsey Graham found out about the indictment, right?
Yes.
If you go back to January 7th of 2020, or is that 2021?
2021.
You will find a clip of Lindsey Graham being asked how he feels about one Donald John Trump.
We don't have the clip, but if I could paraphrase.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm off the train. I'm done. I've had enough.
I like sweet tea.
I like sweet tea. I've had enough. I was there with him, but this is a bridge too far. I'm done. I'm done.
So we all remember that Lindsey Graham.
Right.
And this is Lindsey Graham 2.0 today, where he had tears in his eyes talking about this issue. Here's Lindsey Graham yesterday. Here's what that sounded like.
So what's behind all this? Hatred. They tried to destroy Kavanaugh because they wanted to keep the Supreme Court seat open. They're trying to destroy Donald Trump because they fear him at the ballot box. To the conservatives out there, make sure you vote. If you got friends, make sure they vote. If you don't have any friends, go make some friends. But you need to help this man, Donald J. Trump. They're trying to drain him dry. He spent more money on lawyers than most people spend on campaigns. They're trying to bleed him dry. DonaldJTrump.com. Go tonight. Give the president some money to fight this bullshit. This is going to destroy America. We're going to fight back at the ballot box. We're not going to give in. How does this end, Sean? Trump wins in court, and he wins the election. That's how this ends.
So the reason we play that clip is not to make fun of Lindsey Graham, but to illustrate we don't have an unsealed indictment. We know very little about the actual charges themselves.
Right.
We don't necessarily have access to the evidence. And I think that when calmer minds prevail, we would say, okay, well, when we do get to look at this stuff, then we get to make a determination based on what we can see, not the way that we feel about it, but what is presented to us. And I feel like that's the most even way to go about it. But I think that because there was 4 years, and I'll say this, of media being very unfair and very unkind to one Donald Trump, everyone is primed to skip over that step. They don't care anymore. And that's the fault of many people in mainstream media who refused, even when he did something correct, something very presidential, they refuse to acknowledge it. And you have the Trump base is roughly 30 million people in the United States. So now you've got about a tenth of the population who is primed at all times to ignore everything. They don't care. They only view him as being persecuted. And Lindsey Graham is speaking for those people. In many ways, he's the id of those people.
Yeah.
Look at how unfair this is. Look at the injustice. Make sure to give him money, by the way. And so what I want to give, I kind of want to give him a fair shake. He's not wrong in having that opinion based on who he is speaking to and the way that they perceive Donald Trump being treated right now.
Well, I would alter one thing. He's got 30 million, so he's got 10% of America. But more importantly, he's got 20% of the people in America who will vote. Even given last cycle's record turnout in the presidential election, he's got an active 20% of active voters who will crawl through broken glass to vote for this gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? I would push back against that he was wrongly persecuted, wrongly targeted by the media.
Well, I mean, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't do anything, Spike.
I think the endless parade of things that were concerning drew the media's attention. It's not like they're hanging out at the golf course waiting for him to put up presidential seals at the tee boxes.
Okay, well, you'll give me this, though. When CNN did 6 hours on when his hands were shaking when he drank the bottle of water and they claimed that he was on Adderall, do you remember that day? I remember that day.
I remember, and that's a horrible, horrible way to broadcast. It's a horrible example of journalism, but it's CNN. Would you rather have 6 hours with Lemon or 6 hours with Trump's hands? I kid. No, you're right. You're right. But when you are a media bullseye like he is, you really can't blame the media for doing what he wants them to do, which is come after him and make him a victim and give him reasons to go to his people and say, like, see, when they're coming after me, but then they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I'm just between you and them. He's brilliant in how he manipulates. I'm going to say manipulates how he works within the system that we've chosen as a nation to elect people. We elect them on TV. We elect them with cameras.
Speaking of charisma, by the way, Don Jr. I think he was on his Rumble channel, or was he on Newsmax? I'm not sure.
Chris, I'll tell you what he was on, but I'm not sure which medium it was, but I can tell you what he was on.
He was not doing well yesterday. So I think he was on Rumble, I think he was on Newsmax, actually. And so he had this, just this pearl of wisdom to say about what was happening to his father. Here's what that sounded like.
Apparently, Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is actually indicting my father. So let's be clear, folks. This is like communist level shit. This is stuff that would make Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, it would make them blush.
This is really unhealthy because if you go back and you actually read about Mao or Stalin
or Pol Pot, how many dead millions are we talking about?
You didn't get a trial.
Right.
You didn't get to hire your own lawyers. You didn't get to, contrary to what Nancy Pelosi tweeted out yesterday, you are innocent until proven guilty. So what I find to be disturbing about this rhetoric, I think this is just another a piece of evidence in my favor, is that the derangement around it is also for people who are adamantly supporting him to the point where they are equivocating communist, authoritarian dictatorships to a civil process in which a grand jury got together and had to vote in the majority to press charges, right? And so what I find so disturbing about this is that once we break it down that way, you can see that Don is not accurately representing the circumstance whatsoever.
No.
And then when we do, we can think about it in a fair way. And we can say, okay, well, does it seem politically motivated? Sure, in some ways. And then in other ways, not so much, because you have a group of people who had to vote in our democracy in order to bring charges against former President Donald Trump. And when you say Soros-backed DA, as I've talked about last week, George Soros gives money to a PAC, which then gives money to campaigns all across the country. He doesn't know where the money goes. So I find this talking point to be a little tiring, but my whole point here is that we just try to talk about this with our heads firmly affixed in reality versus what we're seeing from some of our fellow media pundits and commentators, correct?
I agree. And if the former president is guilty of whatever charges are brought during the arraignment, when this indictment is unsealed, I hope they throw the book at him and it's a slap on the wrist and a monetary fine and we all move forward, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But actually asking someone to be held accountable for breaking the law, that's communism. That's the end of democracy as we know it. That's what DeSantis called un-American, that we brought a grand jury in, listen to evidence, and charges will be brought. That's un-American?
Yeah, and what's bizarre about this, too, and I thought about this as well, Spike, and let me know if I'm off base about this, but unfair charges are leveled against people on a daily basis in the United States.
Absolutely.
It happens all of the time. So shouldn't we be critical, not necessarily of Alvin Bragg, let us just say, but of the system as a whole? Should we not be analyzing our legal system as a whole, or is that, weird kind of, or am I being too woke? Am I being too
Equal justice under the law is what everybody – that's what both sides
Right.
That's the marching cry from both sides, is equal justice under the law.
Right.
So before we call these unfair charges, let's find out what the charges are. That's what you've been saying, right? Let's find out what the indictment, when it's unsealed, what charges it brings. I keep seeing this one report. I'm not going to mention the network, but it's only one network that I've seen this on. That like 30 charges. A source says there'll be 30 charges brought.
Yeah, 34. Yeah.
You know, so is that all related to one hush money payment? Or is that, other tax fraud incidents from the business of the Trump organization, Donald Trump's personal taxes?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, but we don't know. If this is so much more than just an adult film performer, because I heard yesterday Diane Duthweiler, when covering this story, refused to use the words porn star.
I refuse.
I loved it. She is an adult entertainment performer.
That's correct.
I just am so enamored with the class shown in this embarrassing moment in U.S. history.
Well, it is embarrassing, I think, in a lot of ways. But at the same time, this is something that I have begged people to do almost the entirety of my radio career, which is that we just wait.
Amen.
We just wait a little bit, and then we as soon as we actually get the information, then we talk about it, and then we can debate it. I have to moderate my Twitter use at this point in time, Spike, because the amount of vitriol, anti-Semitism that I'm seeing being thrown around from people on Twitter towards either Soros or towards Alvin Bragg or towards anybody else that is deemed to be wrapped up in this is astounding to me. Right. And I think that the best thing that we can do is try to be as kind and as understanding as we can be as the information comes out, so that we're not like reactive children and we don't follow the lead of some other political commentators who are they are just making hay while the sun is shining right now, talking about how, you got to donate to our organization, donate to Donald Trump, so on and so forth, because this is so unfair. You're losing your country. This is Marxism, blah, blah, blah. I just think to myself, let's just wait. And then as soon as we get it, then we'll talk about it, and then we'll debate, and then Spike and I can go to fisticuffs, and we can go to blows.
No. We'll go to a hot wing eating contest, and we'll both put ghost pepper sauce, and that's how we'll deal with each other. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And also, Trump went on a Truth Social binge last night, which he will probably get a gag order put on him if he continues in this way, which will be very unfortunate.
Well, but let me ask you this. That's a great point. We don't have a lot of time to get into it, but if a judge says you are tainting the legal process and puts a gag order, which are used daily in the legal system, is that going to be fuel for Trump, or is that going to be is it going to be bad for him, or what's?
It'll be really bad. I think it'll be really bad for him, to be honest, because at that point in time, if he violates it, or if a judge deems him to have violated it, he will go to jail. So he has called Bragg an animal and a racist. He has urged his followers to protest.
He's called him a psychopath. He stood behind, he made a picture behind him with the baseball bat. I mean, he's done some dangerous things.
Right. So if he gets that gag order, that's where I would be most concerned for former President Donald Trump. Meaning, can he not react for 90 days when he has that order? We'll just see. So we'll take a really quick break. When we get back, a billionaire hath decided to leave the region. And also, just so people know, we're going to circle back around to the Trump thing throughout the day. So if you're a multi-hour listener,
but we've got lots of other things that matter in your life to talk about today.
So local billionaire says he's moving to Texas. Find out why when we get back right after this.